Hi, I'm Taryn Smith.
And I'm Mitch Raznick. Welcome to the first broadcast of J699 at Crossroads KU.
We'll be covering summer news up to this point, and we will be doing another production at the end of summer.
We've got stories on different music that's going around KU and Lawrence, as well as sports and weather.
Also, we're delving into quite a few different social issues, as well as arts and culture, obviously, like you said. One of the bands that you covered was
Death Grips. It was their first time
Grips,
actually playing in
right.
Lawrence, as far as I know, and it's been a long time since they actually did a full tour. In other news, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down its final decisions yesterday after a week of highly publicized rulings. On Thursday, the court ruled 6-3 in favor of tax credits for all consumers purchasing health insurance and not only in-state operated exchanges. Then on Friday, the court voted 5-4 in ruling that gays and lesbians have a fundamental right to marry under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Yesterday, the court ruled 5-4 that states can continue to use a 3-drug lethal injection in death penalty cases.
Chris Christie has just announced that Chris Christie has just announced his entry into the Republican race for presidential nomination. According to an NBC and Wall Street Journal poll, 55% of Republican primary voters say that they can envision voting for the governor from New Jersey.
Student Senate announced a new spot for students and faculty to find some peace and quiet. They call it the Reflection Room. Students and staff can visit the room to pray, meditate, or just get away for a while. It opens in the fall in Alcove A at the Kansas Union. Alcove A is a temporary spot until Senate finds the group a permanent home.
Celebration of civil rights continues since the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage on Friday. June 26th of this year also happens to be the 25th anniversary of another U.S. civil rights victory. KU Assistant Professor Dot E. Neri works in the Research and Training Center on Independent Living. She participated in the disability movement responsible for the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, signed by former President George W. Bush on June 26th in 1990.
I had a disability from birth, spina bifida. It didn't become as symptomatic until my 20s. I started having difficulty walking. So around age 30, I got a wheelchair, and that really became very liberating for me. But once I became an adult, and particularly around age 30 when I started using a wheelchair, and I realized, well, I'm a person with a disability, and then I got involved in passing the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's when I really realized, well, you know, I experienced discrimination, and it really made me start thinking about how people with disabilities are referred to.
4 KU students have been nominated for this year's prestigious astronaut scholarship. This is the first time the University of Kansas has been selected to present the award. Up to 2 of the 4 nominees will receive a $10,000 scholarship for the 2015-2016 academic year. The KU nominees are David Geer, Amanda House, Jennifer Stern, and Jessica Van Lobensells. The winner or winners will be announced at some point during July or August and will be presented at a special ceremony on campus.
For KU students and residents of Lawrence, the Lawrence Public Library is more than just books. The library offers a variety of services from ancestral research to sound recording. Kansas Media's Mitch Raznick recently visited the library for a closer look at the Sound and Vision Department.
Ever since its reconstruction, the Lawrence Public Library has offered free recording opportunities through its Sound and Vision Department. Sound and Vision studio manager Ed Rose sat down with us to tell us some of his philosophies and insights in the music and recording industries.
I'd heard about the studio, but when we were walking through it, it was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing that I've ever seen. I mean, this is exactly where studios are headed. I mean, this kind of thing, a free local studio, this just makes such good sense.
Rose is a well-established audio engineer with over 300 credits on his Discogs page and his own Wikipedia page.
Can you believe that?
Since the early 1990s, Rose has worked with different artists all over the world.
I've been to Japan to make records. I've been to Australia a couple times, to England, to Paris, to New Zealand. No, luckily I've gotten to go all over and see all kinds of cool stuff and make all kinds of great friends.
Rose joined Sound and Vision earlier this year and said he hopes to continue working there in the future.
people can come here without having to worry about money, without having to know that guy that has the studio. And, it's just a great public tool that this city's been given.
To read more about Ed Rose's story and Sounded Vision, head over to Kansan.com. For Kansan Media, I'm Mitch Rasnick.
Music therapy student Cole Eisenmenger visited Kingston, Jamaica recently on a missionary trip with his hometown's church, Sacred Heart, from Norfolk, Nebraska. During his week-long stay with this population of disabled and orphaned children, the senior used his knowledge from KU's School of Music to connect with the community on both a spiritual and musical level. He brought egg shakers, buckets, drumsticks, and grabbed anything else he could find so that all of the kids could join in. The language barrier is easily lifted through the universal language of music. Eisenmenger achieved two main goals for the trip: improving various parts of construction for the orphanage, while also creating a connection with these children. What's more, it has inspired the student to return after graduation next May to try and start a music therapy career. In his spare time, Eisenmenger leads a band with vocals and plays the guitar for a local band in Lawrence called North Fork, which is named, sort of, after his hometown, Norfolk.
California-based experimental group Death Grips performed in Lawrence on Friday night. Their show had no opening act, started at an early 8:30 p.m., and there wasn't a chance to even cheer for an encore. Nevertheless, fans seemed to be satisfied with the 90-minute performance. The elusive and mysterious experimental punk band Death Grips came to the Granada on Friday to play a sold-out show. Although some fans doubted Death Grips would really play the show, based on their numerous cancellations in years past, the band came through and the concert was an overall success. In June 2014, the group posted a photo of a note on a napkin to their Facebook page that announced the band was breaking up. Despite the announcement, Death Grips released a two-part album in March this year titled The Powers That Be, which featured vocals from renowned musician Bjork on every track on the first disc. Past collaborations include Twilight star Robert Pattinson on guitar and the track Birds from the album Government Plates, which was released in 2013.
Fans of the 44 and 29 Royals are helping bring big crowds to local businesses in Lawrence, Kansas. Jason Hoffman, the general manager of Johnny's Tavern West, says that game day crowds for the Royals games have been increasing since the Royals World Series run last October. The scene is the same at Henry T's Bar and Grill and at Buffalo Wild Wings, where the managers rarely have to create specials in order to draw the crowds in. There are not just college kids coming in to watch the Royals. As Maria Herrera, the manager of Buffalo Wild Wings, says, all demographics come out to cheer on the Royals. And that will wrap up our first news block. After the break, Mackenzie will be back with our special guest, Curtis Marsh. Please keep watching.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Today we have with us Curtis Marsh from KU Info. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Mackenzie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. KU has a rich history, and a lot of that is connected to its war memorials. So can you tell us a little bit about the World War I and World War II memorials on campus?
Sure. We're in one of the World War I memorials. The Union and the stadium were both built as memorials to those who had fallen in World War I. Right up the hill from the stadium is our Campanile, and that was a World War II memorial. And then more recently, we've had both a Korean War and a Vietnam War memorial placed on campus.
Okay. Student attitudes changed a little bit when it got closer to the Vietnam War. Can you tell us about some of the protests and riots that went on?
Sure. Neither of us were around at the time, but I believe what we've seen is that in the world wars, there was this attitude that America was going to take on the bad guys, and the vast majority of the American public was in favor and frankly was proud of what was going on in both World War I and World War II. I think that what we saw with the Vietnam War was more of a protest, really, and it almost seemed like college campuses became the headquarters for that protest. So we really had some pretty intense stuff going on the KU campus during the Vietnam War. And, you know, college students, for the most part, were very much against not just the war itself, but even the military that were taking part in it.
So KU didn't actually have a Vietnam memorial until 1986.
That's true, and yet, I think you already know this, it was the first Vietnam War memorial placed on a college campus in the entire country.
That's pretty impressive. And today, I would say KU Info kind of lives on as a living memorial of Vietnam War. Can you tell us how KU Info got started?
That's a really nice way of saying it. Part of the challenges that we faced on campus in the late 60s, early 70s were not just protests of the Vietnam War, but protests that had to do with civil rights, and there was some violence on this campus. I think that the administration decided what we really needed was some form of a hotline where people could call and find out what's going on campus. Is it safe? Is my student involved in some of the protests? Do we really have to go to class today if all this crazy stuff is going on? So there were a lot of information needs that were based on the unrest on campus. They started this hotline in the corner of the Dean of Women's office, and then once campus chilled out a little bit, it became just a general question and answer hotline, and we have the same phone number today, and it's kind of the same notion. We don't judge you based on your question. You can ask us anything. So KU Info started because things were so crazy during the Vietnam War.
That's really interesting. And
Thanks.
quite a very rich history, so I'm glad to see that that's living on.
Well, and it's fun to take a little bit of pride, not just in the KU Info history, but the notion that no other school in this country memorialized those who lost their lives in Vietnam War before KU did. And yet, it was like 15 years after the war had ended. I mean, the Campanile was built, was actually dedicated no more than 5 years after World War II was over. So you have this big, beautiful bell tower that was built in 5 years, and we have what I think would be considered a very understated Vietnam War memorial that took 15 years. And I think that shows us how different the mindset was on the college campuses comparing the two wars.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. What is one of your favorite, just random little fun facts about KU?
Oh my gosh, well, we get asked a lot of random fun fact KU questions. I think it's kind of fun that, and this is a big one, we know that we get to claim the guy that created basketball, but he also invented the football helmet, which I think is pretty fun, pretty random. I put that, you know, that Vietnam War memorial is a pretty cool deal for us, and maybe one that's less known. I'm not giving you one, I'm giving you three, and that's not what you asked for. But I also have to say there are 29,525 trees on campus. One for almost every student, so go out there and find your tree.
I'm going to do that this afternoon.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And
my pleasure.
After the break, Taryn will be here with a special story about sexual assault awareness, excuse me. So stay tuned.
The Kansas Health Institute estimates 54% of sexual assaults aren't reported, leaving the majority of victims unaccounted. Consequently, more than half of domestic violence and sexual assault survivors inevitably become invisible statistics. I am a part of this invisible statistic. More than a decade passed before I finally found the courage to set the traumatic truth free. I realized that I needed to own my past, or my abuser would only continue to own me. I was a victim of rape at age 10 by an elder classmate. At age 14, I was raped a second time by 2 men. And by the time I was 18 years old, I had been molested by various guys a number of times, all of whom I knew very well and truly believed to be my friends. As a survivor, this subject is very serious very difficult to talk about and obviously very personal. But being an advocacy journalist makes it a bit easier to address, with the hopes that even one silenced survivor might find their voice after hearing mine. The media needs to stop telling women how to not get raped or how to prepare for being raped. This tactic only perpetuates sexual assault rather than focusing on eradicating rape from our culture. One rape is one too many. The goal shouldn't be a lower number of rapes, it should be 0. The issue at hand is not whether our country is going through an epidemic of violence against women. The issue is whether or not our society will ever realize accommodating a problem rather than eliminating it is not effective in the long term. This issue is the existence of violence, of the assault, and of rape, period. Increasing education on a subject is helpful up to a point, but true activism takes more than a Google search. It takes action. Until rape culture is eradicated from society, domestic violence and sexual assault will continue as the weight of injustice carried silently by each and every other invisible statistic. For the full story, a timeline graphic on history of domestic violence, and an interactive infographic quiz which can help determine if surrounding platonic or intimate relationships show any signs of abuse, visit lawrencenonprofits.com. After the break, Kylan and Derek will be here with sports.
Welcome back with Derek Johnson. I'm Kylan Whitmer here with the past month's sports news. Kansas baseball had a good amount of veteran talent in 2015, but struck out in the MLB draft after no Jayhawks had their name called. Head coach of the team, Rich Price, said he was disappointed with how the draft turned out. Price has good reason to be disappointed with players such as Connor McKay, Blair Beck, and Dakota Smith on the roster, all of whom ranked among the top of the Big 12 offensive statistical categories. This follows the 2014 draft, where Kansas had 6 players drafted, tying for the most in the Big 12 that year. Since taking the helm at Kansas, Price has had 55 players sign with professional organizations and said that he and his assistants are working diligently to try and get the free agent deals for those players deserving from this year's team.
The last KU spring sport to compete this year was track and field. Senior Michael Stiegler won the NCAA National Championship in the 400-meter hurdles. His time of 48.84 seconds helped him get over the hump after runner-up finishes in 2013 and 2014. Stiegler's championship capped a dominant senior year, which included the fastest time in college for the 400-meter hurdles, the 4th fastest time in the world, and an undefeated season. Stiegler was just one of a handful of Jayhawk athletes competing at nationals in Eugene, Oregon. Sophomore Nick Meyer and junior Jake Albright earned second-team All-American honors in the pole vault, while juniors Dana Levy and Sidney Conley brought home first-team All-American status in the hammer throw and long jump, respectively. Overall, the women finished 32nd in the meet, while the men came in 19th place. Stiegler was the only Jayhawk senior who earned All-American status, meaning that his final collegiate meet is also a springboard for his life as a professional. Michael Stiegler's first event as a professional will be the USA Championships from June 25th to the 28th. Hayward Field, where Stiegler won his 400-meter hurdles national title, will host the events. Stiegler is currently training in Lawrence at Rock Chalk Park as he prepares for life as a pro athlete.
My training pretty much is going to stay the same, continue lifting and coming out here on the track, busting my tail off to try to make this world team.
Stiegler has to finish in the top 3 at the USA Championships to secure a spot in the World Championships. He currently has the 4th best time in both the United States and the world. Olympic medalist Michael Tinsley has an automatic bid to the Worlds, so if Stiegler finishes 4th, but Tinsley's in front of him, Stiegler would still qualify. Brashawn Jackson, another athlete in strong competition with Stiegler in 2015, has been a mentor for Stiegler throughout this whole process.
He texted me after NCs and just congratulating me and telling me he's excited for me to get on to the professional circuit with these guys. And he's been a mentor for me. I met him right after high school. I had his number since high school, so he's really a guy that I looked up to, the guys who's going to help me transition and adjust to the professional life. So he's definitely helped me out a lot.
Jackson, who has the fastest time in the 400-meter hurdles this year, could be Stiegler's top competition in the USA Championships come June 25th. After the USA Outdoors, the track schedule includes the World Championships, the 2016 USA Championships, and the 2016 Olympics. Stiegler already has his plans buckled down in preparation for his future track endeavors.
My plans for the trials is definitely just stay here. Gonna live here in Lawrence. As long as Coach Brewer's here, I'm gonna be here. So definitely just keep it the same, and I trust my coaching staff here. We have a great coaching staff here, Coach Redwan and Coach Brewer. So they have knowledge for track and field, so why would I switch that up? So I'm gonna keep it the same.
On Thursday, Stiegler will look to carry his momentum from winning the national championship into winning the USA Championships and getting a spot in the World Championships. It will mark Stiegler's first appearance as a professional and mark a new chapter in his career. For Kansan Media, I'm Derek Johnson. Stiegler recorded the fastest time in the preliminary round of the 400-meter hurdles. After finishing third in the semifinal round, Stiegler went into Saturday with high hopes of making the world team. However, his time of 48.96 seconds in the finals of the USA Championships put him in fourth, just one spot away from traveling to Beijing. Following the race, Stiegler got some good news when he announced a sponsorship with Adidas to be a professional runner, officially kicking off his career.
While the current Jayhawk men's basketball team was taking on Canada last week, one former Jayhawk was back in Lawrence to support his former team and help out with some underprivileged kids. Kansan Media's Derek Skillett had the chance to visit Ben McLemore's summer camp at Rock Chalk Park.
Last week, former Kansas basketball star Ben McLemore held the second annual Ben McLemore Skills Camp here in the Sports Pavilion at Rock Chalk Park in Lawrence, Kansas. Ben McLemore, who starred for the Jayhawks in the 2012-2013 season, returned to Lawrence on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for the second edition of his Skills Camp. Over the three-day camp period, McLemore's camp hosted 80 children from around the Kansas region at the new Sports Pavilion at Rock Chalk Park. As McLemore said, hosting this camp and interacting with the kids meant a lot to him personally.
It's always feeling good. It always feels great to have this opportunity to have a chance to teach different kids, these young kids, the game of basketball that they love to do, they love to play the game of basketball, just like how I was growing up too. But
Of course, McLemore took some time to show off his skills as both a shooter and, of course, his legendary skills as a dunker. Many of the kids participating in this camp came to Lawrence via the Boys and Girls Club of America facilities spread throughout Kansas. They all left very happy. This is Derek Skillett for Kansan Media.
Back to the Diamond for an update with Kansas baseball. After the draft, KU players were free to sign as free agents, and left fielder Connor McKay did just that. Kansan Media's Kylan Whitmer brings us that story.
Former Kansas baseball player Connor McKay played his final game in a Jayhawks uniform right here at Hogland Ballpark on May 17th. Although the Jayhawks had a disappointing season, McKay himself ended up being one of the best players in the Big 12 offensively and was expected to hear his name called in the 2015 MLB draft. McKay was drafted out of high school to his home state Colorado Rockies in 2011, but was not as fortunate in 2015. After 40 rounds and over 1,000 players' names called, Connor McKay still found himself without a roster spot. Head coach of the Kansas baseball team, Rich Price, said he was absolutely devastated McKay didn't get drafted. To put together one of the best seasons offensively in the Big 12 and be honored by the league's coaches as a first-team selection, he was stunned McKay's name did not get called. Although McKay was not drafted, he did not have to wait long until his dream of playing professionally became a reality. 12 days after the draft had ended on June 10th, McKay signed a free agent contract with the Texas Rangers Single-A affiliate, Spokane Indians. Price said he was absolutely thrilled when he got the news and personally thanked and gave credit to Kansas scout Dustin Smith for giving McKay the opportunity. McKay wasted no time in making an impact on his new team. The slugger flew to Spokane, Washington on June 21st and made his professional debut just a day after. As a designated hitter, McKay led his team to victory by hitting a solo home run and collecting 2 RBIs, which earned him Spokane's Impact Player of the Game. McKay said that he had been waiting for the call to the big leagues just like anybody else, and that he feels fortunate for the Rangers to give him the call. This has been Kylan Whitmer, Kansan Media. Kansas Athletics recently released its GPA summary for the spring of 2015 semester. The Kansas Athletics Department recorded a cumulative GPA of 3.0, which is a marked increase from back-to-back semesters of posting 2.94 GPA. The soccer team led the athletics department with a 3.40 GPA. Mark Francis, the soccer head coach, says the increase in cumulative GPA reflects a strong academic support staff at the university. In addition to the GPA increase, 221 student athletes earned spots on the AD's honor roll, 31 of who finished the semester with a perfect 4.0 GPA. 190 student athletes earned between a 3.0 and a 3.99 GPA. In other news, Mississippi State University plans to start requiring student athletes to complete monthly financial education courses in order to collect their new cost of attendance checks. Athletes in a Power 5 conference will receive a monthly amount of money this fall that is separate from their scholarship. The required financial education course idea came from Mississippi State's athletic director, Scott Strickland, who said he doesn't want to tell athletes what to do with their money, but rather make sure they understand the basics of finance. Here in Lawrence, student athletes have similar opportunities. KU offers financial education courses, as well as assistance in creating a resume and meeting with people in the business world. Although the athletic department does not require athletes to take the courses such as Mississippi State, they have begun the talks about updating the program.
You don't have to be a world-class athlete to stay in shape this summer. For more than 30 years, residents of Lawrence have been working out on summer mornings and evenings in what has become a local tradition. Kansas Media's Riley Mortensen took part this year in Red Dog's Dog Days.
At 6 a.m., I participated in a Lawrence summer tradition known as Red Dog's Dog Days, led by Don Red Dog Gardner. Retired Lawrence police officer Red Dog started Dog Days 32 years ago to help keep high school athletes in shape over the summer.
When I went and asked Coach Floyd Temple if I could have a key and do the stadium, he said, "Yeah, that'll be right." And I said, "I'll bring it back in a couple years, Coach." 30 years later, we're still doing it.
Participants of all ages meet at the Lawrence High School Stadium Monday through Thursday at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. and sometimes run in the community with Red Dog cheering them on.
Looking good, Steve. Thank you, Fred. Oh, yeah.
Although I didn't run at 6 p.m. while it's boiling hot with Christmas music in the background, I learned running while the sun rises with Red Dog is a great way to start the day.
Well, maybe we should get the whole Kansas staff and everyone to participate in that. Would you be interested in that?
I don't know about that. Those guys are troopers with the heat we've been having.
That's true. That'd be tough. Well, that'll wrap it up for sports. Stay tuned. And after the break, Derek Skillett and Mitch Rasnick will be here with a weather update.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're here with Derek Skillett, who's got the weather. How is it looking up there on the roof, Derek?
Well, as you can see behind me, it's an absolutely beautiful day. It's about 82 degrees right now, sunny, and just beautiful. But tonight, it'll get a little bit colder. It's going to go down to about 88 degrees around 7 p.m., and it's going to hover there until midnight, mostly cloudy with a 20% chance of rain.
Sounds pretty nice. What about this weekend? How are we looking?
This weekend, there's going to be a little bit more rain. 4th of July, Saturday, it's going to be 87 degrees with a 50% chance of rain, and it's going to be partly to mostly cloudy skies with scattered thunderstorms in the morning. And at night, when most people are out shooting off their fireworks, it's going to be very cold, 67 degrees, 50% chance of rain, and it's going to be partly cloudy in the evening, followed by some scattered thunderstorms after midnight.
Great. Thanks so much, Derek. Try and stay cool out there.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that just about does it for our J699 media broadcast at Media Crossroads. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.